A very good morning and welcome back to the channel. Here in the UK we still remain in lockdown, and listening to the Prime Minister earlier this week, we will be remaining in lockdown for the foreseeable future and until March the 8th at the very earliest. So for the foreseeable few weeks we're definitely going to be homebound. So unless I get to take some photographs on my daily walk, it'll be more films being made from here right at home. So here we are back at Pine Island in Derryclare Lough, Connemara in County Galway, with the promise of a good sunrise. It was a 4:30 alarm call and a 36-minute drive where I didn't see another single car on the road, arriving at Pine Island to see a minibus and 6 French photographers already set up with cameras and tripods to shoot the iconic island. So it was very much the obligatory "Comment ça va? Bonjour, bonjour, ça va bien, merci," and then off to set up the kit. So I spent pretty much 3 hours down here at Pine Island on Derryclare Lough. Absolutely stunning morning, beautiful. And with that in mind and putting this film together, I thought what I would do this morning is to share how that changing light impacted on the landscape and my photography and those images that I captured that morning. So we construct our photographs using light, technically controlling the camera settings of ISO, aperture and shutter speed to provide the right exposure. But today I want to talk about the quality of the light, which in my opinion is fundamentally the paintbrush that affords the image its character, its quality, its overall essence. The quality of the light is the brushstroke we use to create our images. So let's start with blue hour, the hour before sunrise or after sunset. It's 5:42. We are in blue hour, where we have no direct sunlight as the sun is still to rise above the horizon. The light is ambient, soft and indirect, providing illumination that delivers an even, consistent flat scene which, although lacking in contrast and depth, is still enough to be able to pick out the details and the textures in the image. However, for me, we have the silvers and the greys in the tree trunks, branches and twigs set against the greens of the leaves and the foliage, which add that missing contrast not provided by direct sunlight, contrast in colour rather than in light. Then we have the fine, slender reeds poking out of the water in the foreground, with that layer of early morning mist immersing the scene, together with the reflections that add that missing dimension, atmosphere and overall ethereal quality to the image, and importantly, providing the depth to the picture. So out of blue hour and into golden hour, that hour just after sunrise or just before sunset, when the sun is really low against the horizon and the light has further to travel through the atmosphere. It deflects and diffracts through the dust and other particles in that atmosphere to provide that glorious golden glow, that orange colour, that beautiful hue that we see at that time of day. Sunrise was at 5:44 and I wanted to catch a sunburst image as the sun rose above the horizon and came through the trees on Pine Island. I'd done my homework using the photographer's ephemeris and knew exactly the spot to be placed to catch the sun rising through the trees. This small peninsula here reaching out into the lough where I'd set up the tripod in readiness. With the mountains that you can see in the background, it was just a waiting game for the sun to crest the summit. This shot was taken at 5:59, where you can see the golden glow starting to appear and the sky awash with dawn orange, reflected off the clouds and in the lough, providing the depth, contrast and mood. The light in this image is only seen in golden hour, when the sun is really low in the sky and the light has to travel much further through the atmosphere. So in this next image, taken 13 minutes later, at just 12 minutes past 6, the sun crested the mountain tops and burst over the horizon, shining through the trees. I'd stopped down to f22 as at this small aperture light is squeezed through and gives the rising sun this beautiful starburst effect. Shooting into direct light like this means that the foreground remains in shadow, producing this very high contrast light and dark image, silhouettes against the light seen both in the sky and reflected in the mirror-like water. So we have the same scene painting a completely different picture to the previous two images, all based on that ever-changing light. So 12 minutes later at 6:24, and I took this image where the sun has now risen above the mountains and provides this delicate side light, which is now quite prolific on the rugged landscape to the rear of the island and is catching some of the tree trunks, the branches and foliage. Because of the terrain and my location, that early golden light we saw in the previous image didn't quite hit the landscape as the height of the mountains prevented it, but nonetheless the soft warm yellows seen here really do bring the scene to life, giving the contrast and depth that the ambient blue owl light failed to provide. This next image was taken another 10 minutes later at 6:34, and here you can see the warm light really taking hold in the scene, bathing much of the landscape in beautiful soft light, more of the treetops now catching, the colours on the foliage bursting through, side light now painting the side of the mountain and exposing those textures and features. And because the light is still low above the horizon and so directional, it sweeps across the landscape, creating patches of light and shadow that you can pick out, giving the image that contrast and depth. So that contrast between light and dark, part of the landscape lit by the sun and other parts left in shadow, really does provide that depth, that drama and the impact to the scene, which can again be seen in this next photograph. This one taken right at the end of golden hour, 1 hour and 4 minutes after sunrise, this 6 vertical image panorama where I was pushing the boundaries time-wise with the best of the light, but I do feel that this image really pops with colour, light, contrast and impact, again in total contrast to all the previous images. There were 66 minutes between the first image taken and the last image taken that morning, and you can see that despite the scene remaining the same, the quality of light, the difference as the light changed from blue hour into golden hour and through that hour space, how the image quality changed and how the light impacted on the landscape. Here's one last image. In this one, it's the perspective and the composition which has also changed. So this was taken at 7:20 with a Mavic Pro overhead Pine Island. We still have that directional warm side light illuminating the trees and filtering through foliage, but this time it's the dark blue water that provides contrast and depth in the composition. Composition, however, is a totally different subject entirely. I'll put a link up above to an earlier video on compositional elements that you might like to watch. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's video, and if you have, please do give it a like. Please let me know your thoughts below in the comments about the effect of changing light on the landscape. Also, if you are not subscribed and you have enjoyed this film, please do consider subscribing to ensure you don't miss out on future episodes. So I am going to leave you now with some final drone footage over Pine Island. And until next week, just remains for me to say thank you ever so much for watching. As always, your support really is appreciated. Everybody out there, you take care, stay safe, and goodbye.